You slide behind the wheel. You turn the key. And in the next 5 seconds, without ever being told, you either save your money or you set fire to it. That tiny window the first 5 seconds after you start moving is the hidden Japanese feature almost no driver in the West has ever heard about. It costs nothing. No part to buy. No app. No mechanic. I watched an old taxi driver do this at a red light in Kyoto in the winter of 2019, and it quietly rewired the way I drive for the rest of my life. By the end of this, I'll hand you the exact method Japan wrote into a national program back in 2003, and you can use it in your own car, in your own driveway, this very afternoon. Let me tell you how I found it, because, I almost didn't. I was standing outside a train station in Kyoto, waiting for a taxi in the cold, watching the line of them idle by the curb. I am a car man. I've owned maybe 11 cars in my life. I thought I knew how to drive. And then the light turned green, and the taxi in front of me pulled away, and something looked wrong to me. It looked slow. It looked gentle, almost lazy. Every driver in that line pulled off the same way, soft, smooth, like they were carrying a glass of water on the dashboard and didn't want to spill a drop. Back home, that same green light means one thing. You press the pedal, the engine growls, and you go. That's how I was taught. That's how you were taught too. And I stood there thinking those Japanese drivers were just being polite, or careful, or old. I was wrong. Completely wrong. What I was watching was a deliberate, trained, measured technique that the entire country had been taught on purpose. A technique that saves the average driver real money every single week, and that nobody in my whole life had ever mentioned to me. Not my father. Not my driving instructor. Not a single mechanic in 40 years. And the more I dug, the angrier I got that I'd spent decades doing the opposite. So here's the first thing you need to sit with. The way you pull away from a stop is, according to Japan's own transport ministry, the single biggest thing you control that decides how much fuel you burn in city driving. Not the brand of gas. Not some fuel additive on the shelf. Not the fancy trim level the salesman upsold you. The first 5 seconds. That's it. And when I finally understood why, I felt like someone had been quietly picking my pocket at every stoplight for my entire adult life. Let me back up and tell you where this actually comes from, because this is not a folk tale or some vague ancient wisdom. This has a date and a paper trail. In 2003, Japan pulled together 4 separate government bodies: the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, the Ministry of the Environment, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, and even the National Police Agency, and formed something called the Eco Drive Promotion Council. 4 ministries, for a way of pressing a pedal. Think about how strange that is. They treated the way ordinary people drive as a matter of national importance, because a country with almost no oil of its own could not afford to waste a single drop of it. And out of that council came a short list of driving rules, plain rules, written for ordinary people, not engineers. The very first rule on that list, the one they put above all the others, had a soft little name. In Japanese, they call it funwari accel. It means, roughly, the gentle accelerator. And it came with a number so specific it stopped me cold. Take about 5 seconds to reach 20 kilometers an hour. That's around 12 miles an hour. 5 seconds. Not a hard launch. Not a crawl. A smooth, deliberate, 5-second roll up to speed. That was it. That was what the taxi drivers were doing. They weren't being lazy. They were following a national instruction drilled into professional drivers across the country, and their own transport ministry had measured what it does. Here's what it does. When you use that gentle 5-second start instead of a normal hard press, Japan's testing found you cut your fuel use by roughly 10 to 11%. Let me say that again slowly, because when I first read it, I thought I'd misread it. Just by changing how you leave a stoplight, you can lower your fuel consumption by about 1/10, and you're stopping and starting dozens of times on any city drive. Now do the arithmetic on your own life. If you spend, say, $200 a month on fuel, 10% is $20 a month. That's $240 a year walking out of your wallet every year because you press a pedal the way an advertisement taught you to. Over 10 years, that's $2,400 for nothing, for a habit you could change on your next trip to the store. And once I understood why, I finally saw the whole rotten shape of it, why this stayed hidden, and who quietly benefited from me never learning it. Let me show you the machine underneath your foot. Here's what's really happening in those first 5 seconds. When your car is standing still and you ask it to move, that is the hardest work the engine ever does. Getting a heavy object moving from a dead stop takes far more energy than keeping it moving once it's rolling. That's just physics. It's the same reason it's hard to start pushing a stalled car but easy to keep it rolling once it goes. So the first few seconds off the line are already the thirstiest moment for your engine. Now, when you stomp the pedal, you throw open the throttle and dump a big slug of fuel into an engine that's turning slowly and inefficiently. You're pouring gasoline into the least efficient possible moment. Most of that extra fuel doesn't turn into useful speed. It turns into heat, noise, and the little shove into your seat that feels powerful and costs you money. The gentle 5-second start does the opposite. It feeds the engine just enough to build momentum smoothly, letting it move through its efficient range instead of screaming through its wasteful one. You reach the same speed. You get to the same red light up ahead at the same time as the man who blasted off. I have tested this myself, again and again, and I always catch him at the next light anyway. But you burn noticeably less fuel getting there. He paid extra to arrive next to me, every single time. And this is where I want you to feel what I felt, because I did that man's version for 40 years. I raced from light to light, feeling quick, feeling in control, and all I was really doing was buying fuel I would never use and grinding my own brakes down faster on the far end. I was proud of a habit that was robbing me. Now here's the part that started to make me angry, and I think it should make you angry too. Ask yourself why you drive the way you drive. Where did that come from? Think about every car commercial you have ever seen in your life. The car launches off a line. The tires spin. The engine roars. The whole feeling they sell you is the hard-press power acceleration 0 to 60 in some number of seconds. You will literally never use on a real road. They spent billions of dollars for decades teaching you that pressing the pedal hard is what a real driver does, that it feels good, that it's what the car is for. They never once told you it was quietly draining your wallet, because your wasted fuel was never their problem. It was your problem. And the more fuel every driver burned, the more fuel got sold. Nobody had to conspire in a dark room. The incentive just quietly ran one direction for generations. And the simple free habit that would have saved you money never got advertised because there was no money in advertising it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a country with no oil of its own sat down and did the honest math and taught its own people the opposite. Gentle start, 5 seconds, save the fuel. They put it in driving schools. They put it on signs. They trained the taxi fleets. And that knowledge stayed over there, useful and quiet, while over here we kept flooring it and paying for it. That gap, that's the whole thing. That's why 1% of drivers around you know this and 99% don't. It was never hidden by a lock and key. It was hidden by a whole culture pointing your attention the other way. But the gentle start is only the first rule on that Japanese list. And once I started pulling the thread, the rest of it came loose. And each piece saved me a little more. The second thing those Japanese drivers do is something I now think about at every hill and every red light I can see coming. They lift off the gas early, long before the stop. In the West, we do the opposite. We stay on the gas right up until the last second, then jam the brake. Think about what that means. You spend fuel to build speed, and then you spend your brake pads to throw that speed away as heat. You paid twice. Once for the gas, once for the wear. The Japanese eco-driving method calls for reading the road ahead, easing off the pedal early, and letting the car coast down toward the stop using the engine itself to slow you. When you lift off in gear on a modern car, most engines cut the fuel almost completely. While you're slowing, you are literally rolling for free. You use less brake. Your pads and rotors last longer, which is real money too, because a brake job isn't cheap anymore. And you arrive at the red light gently, right about when it's turning green again, so half the time you never even fully stop. And that was the moment my skepticism cracked, and honestly, it was also the moment I realized how many other quiet systems like this one had been sitting right in front of me my whole life, buried under louder noise. That realization is actually what pushed me to write it all down properly. I put the full picture, the driving systems, the broader Japanese frameworks for spending less and keeping more into a book called Japanese Roots. If you're the kind of person who wants the whole map and not just one piece of it, that book is listed in the description. It's the same honest, no-product approach you're getting right now, just much deeper and all in one place. I spent a long time making sure it earned its place on your shelf. But back to the machine underneath your foot, because understanding the number is not the same as understanding why it's true. I started doing this on my regular drive to the shops, a route with 4 traffic lights I know by heart. Once I started lifting off early and coasting into them, I noticed I was braking hard, maybe a third as often. My car felt calmer. I felt calmer. And months later, my mechanic asked me what I'd done differently, because my brakes had barely worn at all. The third piece is idling, just sitting there with the engine running, going nowhere. In Japan, cutting unnecessary idling is drilled in so hard that for years many of their cars came with automatic systems that shut the engine off at a long stop and restart it the instant you lift off the brake. But you don't need a fancy car to get the benefit. If you're parked and waiting for someone, if you're sitting in a long line that isn't moving, the old belief that restarting uses more fuel than idling simply isn't true for anything beyond a few seconds. A car that idles is a car burning fuel to move you exactly nowhere. The Japanese figured that out and made a habit of it decades ago. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. You're thinking, this is all very nice for taxi drivers in Kyoto, but I don't live in Japan, I don't drive a special Japanese car, and my life is not some tidy example. I hear you. So let me speak to you directly, because the next part is built for exactly you, the person sitting in an ordinary Western town, in an ordinary car, in the driveway you already have. Here is the truth that took the pressure right off me. Not one single thing I've told you needs Japan. Not one needs a new car, a special part, a product, or a trip anywhere. Every one of these methods is just a change in how your own foot moves in the car sitting outside your window right now, starting on your very next drive. So here's exactly what to do this week. On your next trip, pick one thing. Just one. The gentle start. When the light goes green, imagine there's a full cup of coffee on your dash and you refuse to spill it. Count it out in your head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let the car roll smoothly up to neighborhood speed over about those 5 seconds. That's it. Do only that for a week. It will feel strange for the first day, maybe slow. By day 3, it will feel normal. By the end of the week, you won't be able to drive the old way without noticing how wasteful it feels. Then add the second thing. Start looking farther up the road. When you see a red light or a stop sign ahead, take your foot off the gas early and let the car coast down to it instead of powering up and braking late. You'll be shocked how often the light changes before you even reach it. You don't need to track anything or buy a gadget. But if you want proof for your own eyes, most cars built in the last 15 years or so have a little fuel readout tucked in the dashboard menu, an average miles per gallon number. Find it. Note where it sits today. Drive the gentle way for 2 weeks. Then look again. Watching that number climb, with your own money staying in your own pocket, is the moment this stops being my story and becomes yours. And there's one more free thing. So simple it's almost insulting that no one tells us. Your tire pressure. The Japan Automobile Federation, their equivalent of a national motoring club, has run tests on this for years. Tires that are low on air drag against the road and quietly eat your fuel and wear themselves out faster and unevenly. Check your pressure once a month at the air pump you already drive past at the gas station. Set it to the number printed right there on the sticker inside your driver's door, and you've done for free what people pay for in fuel every week without realizing it. It costs nothing but 2 minutes. So now you have the whole ordinary toolkit. Gentle start. Coast early. Kill needless idling. Keep your tires full. Every one of them free. Every one of them working in your driveway today. But I promised you a secret finale, and I've been holding the best piece back on purpose because when I finally understood it, it changed the way I saw all the rest. Everything I've told you so far are the pieces. This is the thing that ties them into one. When I went back into the actual documents from that 2003 EcoDrive Promotion Council, past the headlines and into the real published guidance, I found the rule that ranks above even the gentle start for how much it matters on the open road. It has almost no name in the West, and it's this. Hold a steady speed. Steady, constant, as close to unchanging as the road allows. That sounds almost too plain to matter, doesn't it? It did to me, but here's what's underneath it. Every time you speed up, you spend fuel. Every time you then slow down, you throw that spent fuel away. So the driver who's constantly nudging up and down a little faster, a little slower, surging and easing, without even realizing it, is paying for acceleration over and over and over across a whole trip. The Japanese guidance found that avoiding that pointless surging and holding one smooth speed saves a serious slice of fuel on longer drives on top of everything else. Some of their real-world figures put the waste from that constant surging at around 10 to 15% of your fuel by itself. And here's the piece almost nobody in the West has ever been told plainly. Most cars have the tool for this already built in and sitting unused. Cruise control. We think of it as a comfort feature for long highway trips, something to rest your foot. But the Japanese method reframes it completely. It's not a comfort feature, it's a fuel-saving instrument. On any steady stretch of road, a highway, a long, clear road out of town, setting a constant speed with cruise control takes your restless human foot out of the equation and holds the exact steady pace that burns the least fuel. The very feature you've been ignoring as a luxury was quietly one of the most powerful money savers in your car the whole time. So picture the full method now, the way I finally saw it standing on that Kyoto curb once all the pieces fit together. You leave every stop gentle, over 5 soft seconds. You hold one calm, steady speed instead of surging. You read the road far ahead and coast down early instead of racing up and braking late. You don't sit idling for nothing. You keep your tires full of air. Put those together and you're not doing 5 tricks. You're driving the single smooth, unbroken way a whole nation without oil taught itself to drive to stop wasting money. And Japan's own numbers say that a driver who does all of it can cut fuel use by around 20% overall compared to the aggressive way. Most of us were taught 20%. Think about what that is over a lifetime of driving. Think about the thousands of dollars, the tank after tank after tank, that most of us have burned and thrown out the tailpipe simply because the smooth, boring, freeway to drive was never the one anybody put on a billboard. That's the secret, not a part, not a purchase, a way of moving your foot that a careful country wrote down in a national program in 2003 that their taxi drivers do at every light without thinking, and that you can start on your next trip for exactly $0. I stood on that curb in Kyoto, a skeptic. I flew home and I tested every bit of it in my own ordinary car, on my own ordinary roads. And I watched that little fuel number climb week after week, and I have never once gone back to the old way. What was quietly taken from you was never money, not really. It was the plain truth that the cheapest, calmest, longest-lasting way to drive was sitting under your own foot the entire time, and someone with a louder message made sure you looked the other way. If you're the kind of person who started to suspect that the simplest, oldest, quietest answers were pushed aside so someone louder could keep you paying, then you already understand what this channel is really about, and you belong here. So let me ask you something specific, and I want you to actually answer me down in the comments because I read them. When you drive, are you a hard-press, race-to-the-next-light driver, or have you always secretly been a gentle start one? Tell me honestly which one you've been all these years, and if you try the 5-second start this week, come back and tell me what that fuel number did. I want to hear it. And if you want to keep recovering the things that got quietly buried while the convenience world sold us the loud version, come with us. Subscribe, because this isn't a channel, it's a group of people digging up what still works. Next time, I'm going to show you the forgotten Japanese habit around when they turn their engine off and coast that I didn't have room for today, a small thing older drivers over there do at the top of every hill, and once you see it, you'll never unsee it on your own road. You made the right choice clicking this. Now go drive like the 1% and keep your money where it belongs. I'm not quite done with you. That 5-second launch I showed you? Inside my membership, the Japanese Ways Circle, I take it further, drilled right into your own commute step by step. And if something isn't clear, ask me directly, I answer you myself. You won't be doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime with one click.